Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your time and energy and being here. And we're just excited to introduce two lovely guests. Jen Tate is the Chief Creative Officer of your best-selling book, and she's also I'm sorry, I'm going to mess that up. She
No
works
worries.
at Oregon Media Lab as a producer. So no small jobs here, right?
So such a long title.
Yeah, yeah. And then May Fox, oh my goodness, it's so hard to like condense how to introduce you, but she's a two-time New York bestselling author, the co-founder of your best-selling book, and just a lovely human to get to know. Both of you women are running this community that I will be more active in because I have more bandwidth now. But it's just really to create a safe space for authors to really tell their story and be inspired to continue the journey of writing. So I really love that you did this and just the timing of everything. Out here, it was during the California fires. And so it kind of really was very supportive, I'll just say, in that we were all kind of going through so much. And, you guys both have such a big heart and community of service. So I won't belabor all of the things, but did I miss anything in introductions? Let's just make sure I cleared that. Okay. Yeah, so I wanted to have you guys on because I know that as someone who is in the creative industry and loves to write, I know we all struggle as authors. And so, with your careers both spanning, I know you both go ghost write and edit and do all the things. Really, like what do you see shifting in the book world in general? And I know that's a big question and I didn't prep it, but now that I have you both here, I'm like, I have to ask this question.
Well, I don't mind jumping into that one because I've seen huge seismic gargantuan shifts in the 25 years that I've been around the publishing industry.
Mhm.
When my career started back in the dark ages, there was no choice except to try to pursue a traditional publishing house. I mean, there were the big five New York publishing, like Random House, Penguin Putnam, Simon and Schuster. Then there were a few indie press, and then there was academic press. But that was
Mhm.
it. And if you didn't get a book deal, no one was going to read your book. And wow, has that changed, right? I mean, we started to see the rise of hybrid publishing and self-publishing about a decade ago.
Mhm.
But at that time, it was considered very like plan B is even being generous. People are kind of like, oh, well, you self-published, right? And just dismissed. And what I've seen is a complete change where now so many people, including very respectable authors like Seth Godin, who is a marketing guru who has numerous New York Times bestselling books, choose to self-publish.
Mhm.
Why? Because you maintain creative control, all the IP, all the timing, and all the profits.
Right? Who wants that, right? No.
No, but you don't get the big fancy publishing house behind you, and you don't get somebody else, project managing. I say like a lot of publishing is project management. So, they'll
Mhm.
just kind of sweep up your manuscript and they will edit it and they'll design the cover and they'll make sure it gets listed on Amazon. They'll make sure it gets, some distribution. But it's pretty exciting for me. I really like seeing that change and that it's really democratized publishing and opened the door to so many more voices and so many more people where anybody who has a story to share can share it. That to me
Mhm.
is thrilling.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Well, and you said it's shifted a lot. And it sounds like before, like it was very limiting, like only if you made these certain markers. And it's even more challenging. I've heard you say this often that it's more challenging now to get a book deal. And so versus being so discouraged about not getting it picked up, I think we can feel more aligned to know, well, there is another path and there is another way. And Jen, what did you want to add?
Well, I was going to say that one thing that we missed in the introduction is that Meme and I also happen to be best friends and have
Oh,
known each other for 30
Thanks,
plus
Jen.
years. So there's also that.
yeah.
But I say that only because I have been watching Meme ride this wave and go from buying the how to write a book and how to get a book published, how to manual way back when, and teaching herself and learning and going through this process. And now coming on board with her a few years ago to join her, in part because so many people were more and more open to self-publishing and maybe working with a book coach, which is what I do a lot of doing, and editing with these people to help them self-publish. So like it's just been this very seamless journey for me to be like, oh yeah, there's more of this going on. There are more people trying to get their stories out into the world. And then there's AI. Because the AI has played into that as well, where we both have had a number of clients recently who basically started out like, hey, I've got all this stuff I've been writing and working on, and I'm working with AI, and it's been very helpful. And now I have 100,000 words of sort of nonsense, complicated stuff. I mean, that is part of what they were dealing with. And so that's become a new aspect of what we do, is helping people find their story from within the mess that they've made with AI.
Yeah, I think AI is such a great tool and such a barrier at the same point. I think it really can limit us into our own creative process. And in that, it's great and it does serve a purpose. But like you said multiple times in our meetups, it should not be the 98% of your book because then you're not going to stand out. It's not your stories and it doesn't have that human element. And I do want to circle back because Mamie, you have such a great story about how you got started. And I would just love for everyone to hear, like, however much you want to share.
Sure. And I wanted to say hi to Enrique and Jamie who joined us. Hi, guys. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, guys.
We'll have to talk later with Enrique and find out about your publishing house that you started. How cool is that? So thanks for being here. So yeah, mine is really serendipitous. I like to say that I didn't choose my path, but it chose me. And I think that, part of what I've learned in life is being open to those sorts of signs from the universe. And Candice, you and I have bonded over that. And certainly Jen and I have bonded over that a lot. So all I knew is what I didn't want to do, which is I graduated with a degree in psychology. I almost went for a PhD, decided at the last minute that I wanted to get out into the working world, got a job at McKinsey & Company doing management consulting, because what do you do with a psychology degree? And that was an eye-opening experience. I learned a ton. I met great people, but I was like, wow, this is not what I want to do with my life. Like, I don't want to make rich companies richer for a living. It's not really aligned with my values. Right. So I finished out my 2-year program there, and then I had no idea what I want to do. And I was truly like, okay, back to the drawing board. And a friend of mine who's 14 years older, he was a doctor, and he's like, I want to write a book. Well, you want to write a book with me? He said, sure, let's write a book. Like, that sounds like a good next step. So I went to the bookstore and bought a book called How to Write a Book Proposal, because this was pre-Google. You couldn't Google stuff. You couldn't get information online. You couldn't watch a YouTube video or take an online course and find out how to write a book. So I read it cover to cover. I wrote a book proposal. I emailed it to everyone I knew. I said, does anyone know anyone in publishing who might be willing to give me some feedback on this? That's all I was thinking, was I'd get feedback. And a friend had a friend who was very junior at Penguin Putnam who offered to look at it. And I sent it to her. And about a week later, she emailed back and said, you know what? We never do this. We're buying your book.
Yeah.
So wow. Really extraordinary. And at the time, as a 25-year-old who knew nothing of the publishing world, I was like, cool, awesome. Like, I just figured that's how it works,
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a book deal. And out of that, the woman who published it, the senior editor, Amy Hertz, who is an amazing woman, she really mentored me. It's made me a huge believer. I'm like a really strong believer in mentorship, especially female mentorship, like women mentoring women. I'm very passionate about it because she took me under her wing and got me a literary agent, got me my next book deal, just showed me the ropes and really mentored me for years. So I was so lucky.
That's just such a story of alignment too. And the funny part about, I was 25. I didn't really get how big of a deal it was, but at least now I think it's good because then it didn't add pressure. Like looking back, I bet it's probably set your energy to be more supported because you're not overthinking it. And then Jen, what's your story? What got you into all the things?
Well, so I've been working in the documentary film world, telling stories there for many years. And when my youngest went off to college a couple years ago, May reached out and was like, "Hey, I've got too many projects going on right now, and you've always said like maybe you'd want to take up like this is your chance." So I thought, okay, I'll give it a shot. And we joked, we're like, okay, so now we're story doulas, right? We're helping people bring their stories to life, whether it's on screen, whether it's on a book, whatever. And so next thing I know, I've got two book projects. I'm deep into editing one, and the other one we started from scratch, and I co-authored in 4 months. And by 6 months later, it was an Amazon bestseller. And it was just, I went from 0 to 100, and it's honestly only because I got to ride on Meme's wings, carrying me along and saying like, oh no, here's how you do a direct sort of like from here to here. This is storytelling on screen, and this is with a book. And it's been amazing. It's felt very, very natural to me also. Of course, this is what I'm doing now. I did study creative writing in college. That's my degree. So it feels like a natural sort of coming home to me. And I really benefited from the advancements in technology that have happened in the last, not just AI, but I wrote that book so quickly because I interviewed, I still haven't met in person this woman who I co-authored with, but
Wow.
we Zoom called
Mhm.
once a week for a couple of months, and I was taking the transcripts from that right away and able to work with that and develop questions to follow up. And it was something that wouldn't have existed before. It would have gone so much slower. So
Right.
that was amazing for me, and made it really possible.
Wow, you just said something that, and not to take us, I had prepped you guys, but then this is how this works. So, you just said something that I think is pretty key. You said that, in film, we tell a story differently than we do a book. Can you kind of share what that looks like? I've never thought of it that way.
I would say we do it differently and also the same, right? I mean, there's
Mhm.
still the same concept of a story arc. There's still the same, Meme is famous for saying every book should start with a movie moment. Like you should open that first page and like you should feel like you're in the middle of a scene in a movie, even if the rest of the book is not like that. But that is in fact the world we live in now, right? Every Instagram
Right.
feed post that we scroll through, or whatever it is its own little mini story. If a lot of people are watching it, that's because it has an element of story to it.
Wow.
So in some ways, there really is a, an easy flow back and forth between the two. And my family will attest to the fact that like I don't just work on a book quietly. Like I read my writing out loud back to myself. I often sound like I'm just talking to myself in the next room, but that is because I've come from the world of scripts and of things where it's
Mhm.
like, well, what is this going to sound like? And now, so many books go straight to audiobook,
Yes.
right? So what your words sound like matter more than ever. So
Mhm.
I feel like in a lot of ways there's this coming together. I'm going to just tee you up, Meme, with this idea of story being important to us, almost like a cure. and
I love
and
it. Good
and at
job,
lunch
Jen.
to you, Meme.
Yeah, so the community that Candice is part of and that Jen was a co-founder of with me is called the Story Cure. We're on Mighty Networks, which is one of the largest hosts of online communities. And I think what's interesting is exactly this idea. Like Jen came from the world of documentary filmmaking. My husband, Kiran, came from the world of script writing, like writing, fiction films, feature length fiction
Mhm.
films, and then transitioned into novel writing. And I came exclusively from the world of nonfiction, but books and then also articles, because I was a contributor to Forbes for almost a decade. So it was so fascinating to start talking about this idea that it doesn't matter the medium. And I love that you brought up audiobooks, Jen, because that's the other thing I should have mentioned, in the huge change that I've seen in the publishing industry in 25 years. Audiobooks are growing
Mhm.
exponentially. I mean, it is like very dramatic. And there are people who launch straight to audiobook or only audiobook, but like certainly to do
Mhm.
both. because so many people are listening to books now. So it kind of becomes this whole thing of like, even or giving a speech. I gave a TED talk last year, TEDx Boca Raton, which was called The Story Cure, How Storytelling Can Heal Our Hearts in Our Divided World. Because when I started doing the research, and this is part of the Story Cure community as well, it turns out that the simple act of writing your story, just writing your story as the hero's journey, for example, like thinking of yourself as Luke Skywalker or Barbie or Harry Potter, and you're on the hero's journey and you face obstacles and there are people there to help you and there are people there getting in your way. And then what is the kind of wisdom that you get out of that? Just the process of writing your story that way forms new neural pathways in your brain. I mean, it's so amazing to me. Like, it really is a thing. It helps you heal trauma. Just writing your story. And then if you have the courage and you're ready, and it's not for everyone and you have to be ready, but if you're ready to start sharing it with others, it's so profound and powerful the way that once we start to hear little stories of other people's lives, and what's what we do in our online community too, in a very nurturing and safe way, how it bonds you together, and it can overcome really serious political divides.
Right. Well, and I think that's one of the things that drew me into your community is there's such a diverse group of people in there, all different backgrounds and lineages and experiences, ages, and it's not separated. Like we come together and we're just excited to get to support one another and in that creative process. And I think even the vulnerability of writing a book alone is something so deep within us, and to have that energy of support and just the guidance and being able to think through these things. I love the prompts. Like I reflect on them, and it's like it gives you a different way of looking at life and each other, and then getting to see other people respond. It really just creates community, which I think we're all trying to come back into. I've said this so many times that when we come back to self, we come back to community. And I feel like you guys do a really great job of that. And that's, really like what I want to talk about next is a couple of things. So you guys have an 8-week cohort that you host. I don't know when your next one is. I meant to ask that beforehand. But also, and I think that's why I think the reason why you created it is because you see what holds authors back. And I want to ask that question. What do you guys see the most often that holds an author back from speaking their truth, being more vulnerable, and being able to share their story? And I'm sure there's multiple layers to this, but what would you like to share today?
Well, I could go, and Jen, I'd love your perspective on it as well, because I'm sure you have. But I would say, you brought it up, Candice. Writing a book is very lonely. It's very solitary, right? So the magic of our 8-week online course, Your Best-Selling Book, I've recorded like 8 hours of videos with a full download of everything I know about the publishing industry and different publishing models and how to edit and how to promote. And then there's all these expert interviews with literary agents and book marketing specialists. But the part that people love is the community. And we meet every week for an hour in a small group, workshopping everyone's books. And then we do an hour of open office hours every week where people can drop in and ask questions. Then we also have the Story Cure community where they can go online anytime and share their writing. And it's amazing. Within one session, 1 hour, we're all like each other's best friends. We have tears. After, and it's like, we need to be supported in that journey. It's a long journey. It's emotional. Everything has ups and downs. A lot of people are confronting trauma in their past when they're writing. And so it can get, that can be one of the stumbling blocks as you sort of hit a moment of exploring trauma in your own life, and that kind of stalls you out. I think another that I see often is a sort of tendency, especially amongst the folks that Jen and I attract into our orbit, brilliant, highly accomplished people who imagine that the best book is showing their expertise. A lot of like, It gets a little
Right.
blah, blah, blah.
No, yeah.
Like, now we need a story. We keep saying this. You will hear Jen and I are like relentless on this. We are broken records. We're like, and now we need a story.
Gotta relate.
Yes. You can tell people, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, here are my 5 points, but you can also tell them one story.
Yeah, you know, the whole show don't tell, right? Tell me something for 2 paragraphs. Great. Then show me the story of like why this matters. And then repeat. And that's every chapter in some version, right? Like we need to understand the why, and the why it matters that you're telling me, like you, not some textbook without a face or a name.
Or ChatGPT.
Or the robot.
Because ChatGPT can tell you too, right?
That's so funny. Yeah. Well,
what do you see as holding people back?
Well,
also,
I mean, you know, it sounds like I keep bringing this up, but my role has often been to help people get over the technology hump of just like, hey, did you know you could, if you have an idea for a story, pick up your phone and just speak it into it and record your voice saying it. That's writing. Like explaining to people that is like when you are saying the words, that is the same as writing. And now that there's automatic transcription services that like you'll see your words on the page, you'll be like, oh my God, I just wrote 3 pages by talking on my walk with my dog.
Yep.
So that's something that I feel like a lot of people, maybe older generations, really still don't get, you know?
Yeah. Well, and what you just said is like you're helping people see the possibility. I think that a lot of times we do limit with time being the biggest constraint for almost anything we endeavor in. And, you know, even that simple switch of it's still writing, it's still channeling through you. It's still being pulled through you if you're talking it out. And if you have an iPhone, the great thing is it does a transcript for you. So you don't even have to do anything. You just copy it over. And it makes your life it makes it more accessible. I think that and one of the greatest things that technology has given us and gifted to us is the ability to do these things while still maintaining life. And so it just kind of creates that less barrier to entry, I think, but we have to think outside our normal box of, oh, if I'm not writing it physically, then I'm not technically writing. How do you guys help? I mean, you kind of mentioned a little bit there, but how do you guys help them move through those blocks when they are just having a really big struggle?
Well, I would love, Jen, you should tell a little bit about your teaching on how to use AI. Because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah,
And,
I mean,
you know,
we kept coming around to like, okay, so should I record a session and you know, we'll have a recorded session of me teaching about AI, and then we decided no, we can't do that because AI keeps changing so quickly. Like what I say will be outdated, right? But with my favorite use of AI currently is Google's Notebook LM, which if you don't know about it, you know, it's free if you've got a Gmail account. And you can take anything you've written, or honestly anyone else has written, and load it up. You know, picture it like a big binder. Like if you used to print out things and you'd have a big binder full of all your notes for a project. Well, this is just the digital version of that, right? And then you can engage in an AI conversation with just that work that's in there. So, for example, I'm working with someone right now who has a version of a book that she wrote 3 years ago. Then she worked with some editors. Now she has a new version. So I've got both versions loaded up, and I'm having a conversation with these 2 versions about like, okay, let's lay out an outline of both versions of this book next to each other. Now I want to talk about like what are some things that are missing in the new one that were in the first one, and it'll make me list. It's not writing things for me. It's basically being my assistant who's sifting through these things. And I've introduced this to so many people now, and their little minds blow right in front of you. You know, there's like, wait, what? I don't have to do that, the big level thinking. Something else can do this big level, and I can get into the minutia. Because for most authors, the part of why it's so lonely is because you're the only person who knows all the details. You're the only, you can tell other people about, oh, I'm writing a book about football and, you know, whatever. That's the big level stuff. You're the only one who knows about the trauma that you went through because of a football injury, because of, you know. And so I watch again and again a healthy relationship develop between writers and technology so that they feel like they've got an assistant with the details.
I love that you said a healthy relationship. And I also really appreciate that you're like, and we're not asking it to write for us. We're asking it to yeah, I think you both.
No.
Um,
No, because we've seen this over and over again, right? And the AI slop, and I'm even seeing it in so many newsletters, and it's really bumming me out. Like, it's a bit disheartening because they're friends. I've been following their newsletters for years, and now I'm getting them, and they say it's not just a book; it's a movement. And I'm like, oh my god, it's ChatGPT. Like, there's catchphrases that I recognize, and I'm like, what happened to your writing? Like, what's your writing? Too many M dashes.
I think
And I'm like, what happened to your writing? Like, and so that's part of it, but also, it's just a combination. It is, and so I love too that Jen said that. It is a combination. It's like build the notebook LM, ask it to generate a table of contents. It's going to be really good at that. Right. So there are ways to use it and ways not to use it, but you've got to get your stories with your heart and soul onto the page at some point, even if it's talking.
Yeah, well, and that's such a good point because, like, I think that's where a lot of creatives are. We're really trying to best practice use AI because, again, there is just something so genuine, and like we were given the message to deliver, and so to filter it through a system that is going to dilute it or make it change so much that it's lost its essence of you, I think that there's just like that energy exchange that gets lost. And as somebody who just enjoys the writing process, I'm not an editor. I will forever say that you do not want me putting periods or commas anywhere. But like as far as the actual writing, like there's so much joy that comes from that. And so I can't imagine like not wanting to be a part of that process. And again, there's like, I think you said it when in a training where you're like, Notebook LM is like your personal Google search. I was mind blown by this because, I use it for transcripts with client sessions, and I can then go in and analyze and say, okay, what am I missing as a practitioner, or how can I better support them? And it's like a learning tool for me, which is really fun, right? It's just it's like it helps you catch the things that you might not see. So what are you guys? I mean, you really talk about storytelling and the importance of storytelling, and I'm sure that we kind of know why, but in your experience, why do you feel that element is the most supportive for an author to get their book going?
In terms of community?
Yeah, well, and like to create a really stellar book. Like, why is story so important? What does it do to the brain? What does it do to the experience for the reader? So
Think about how we started as humans around campfires, telling stories. It's what we do, right? It is what we do. And all, take it all the way to the best TikTok videos, the most watched YouTube videos. They are also stories. That is what we crave. The up down completion. I was at a pitch party for a bunch of short films last night and got to hear table reads of 4 scripts, one after another, for these 4 short films. And there were 75 people in the room, and you could feel us on the ride of the story, and we'd all gasp at the same time. We'd all, with a well-told story, it's almost something inside that we experience. And so whether that again gets translated into a book or into a film or whatever it is, I do think it is a part of it's how we teach our children, right? It's how we learn in all through schools. I think it is something deeper than what the area it often gets put into. We tell stories for a while and do stories when we're young, but then, oh, well, that's not what we do anymore. But ask any person in marketing, ask any person in communication in any industry, what do you do? Oh, I tell the story of the technology that this company uses. This is what they do, right? So it is inherent. It's almost like a whatever 8th or 9th sense that we have inside of us, is this natural urge to share story.
Yeah.
I think it's very true. And it shows again in like the fMRIs and the brain scans that the minute that someone starts to listen to a story, we're not even talking about storytelling now, we're talking about listening to story, like what you were doing last night, Jen. it starts to stimulate the compassion center of our brain. Just listening to a story.
Wow.
It's so fascinating to me. And just in terms of why is it important also for writing a book or a documentary film or a speech? Because it has to be personal, right? Otherwise it is just, you could go and ask ChatGPT and it could give you an answer. Like what you are sharing, your wisdom, has come from your unique life experience. And I always say this when people will come, and sometimes they talk to me and they say, well, I've always felt like I had a book in me, but I mean, come on, we do not need more books. There are billions of books in the world. Who needs another book? And I say, well, sure. And your book by you, that has never been written. That story has never been told. And that story is going to resonate with someone in a way that they could have heard the same information 50 times in their life, but it didn't break through to them. You know, whether it's about, I was speaking to this woman last night who's like a health and fitness influencer. And, you know, she almost died from anorexia. She weighed like 79 pounds at one point. And so her story of health and fitness, as she's starting to tell it, I'm working with her on her TED Talk, and then we're going to work on her book together, is going to be very different than some dude who's like, you know, following, you know, how to eat 50,000 grams of protein a week.
Right. Yeah. It's a little different.
Like those are both health and fitness books, sure. But like, how vastly different is that experience based on her story? Right. So and that's the story. Somebody needs to hear that story from her in that moment. And I am convinced to tell people also to imagine yourself back in the old days when Jen was making her early films and I was writing my first books. The only way to get the message out to people was to have a viewing of your film or to have an author event with your book. There was no internet for you to push it out on. So you go to a bookstore, you have your author event, 20 people show up. How would you feel if 20 people showed up to your author event back in 1995? You would be thrilled.
I would be excited now.
People, okay, out of those 20 people, 5 of them come up at the end and they say, will you sign my book? Oh my God, like this book changed my life. How would you feel?
Elated.
Amazing. Elated. You'd be like, done. I have done my job here. But yet in the age of the internet, like we're like, oh my God, only 20 people liked my book. Only 5 people said it changed their life. So we have to be careful of the story that we tell ourselves too about the impact that we're having. It's not about selling tens of thousands. It's about, can you change 10 people's lives?
I love that so much. I say this all the time to people who are just even in the online space of putting themselves out there. I'm like, you never know who's going to hear the message. You may never know the way it changes their life, but because you showed up authentically, they were able to receive it. And that's all that matters. At the end of the day, if we ever want to see change in the world, we just need to put the message out there. And it's like, how can you change one person's life? 10 people is amazing. Like if I had 20 people show up, I'd be like doing the dance. Okay. Like it would be amazing. And that just reminds me to add in, I think for authors, and this is just my personal opinion, is that I think that authors in this next season of life are going to be required more in-person connection because of the rise of AI, because of the energy exchange that happens in person, like getting back to more traditional community-based, hey, I am an author, I want to know you. I think that will go much further in their reach, in their process. But that's just what I'm feeling. I'm feeling like we're really moving towards in-person connection. And I know that we're coming, like we've gone over on time. So I truly appreciate both of you for coming to talk about this. I could talk with you forever. You both have amazing energy and just are great humans. Like the things that you've done and just, it's just an honor. I just want to say that just outright, it's been an honor. I do want to ask, there's two more just quick questions, and I'll ask the first one. What lasting impact do you hope that your work has on the world, but also in the book industry?
You take that.
I mean, yeah, I don't care about any lasting impact on the book industry,
Yeah,
frankly,
or
Candice.
in their lives, in their lives. Let's
It's not my
yeah.
purpose. My life purpose is only, I feel I was called on this path, nearly 30 years ago and continue on it to this day, which is I am delighted to be a story doula, and with Jen now, with the Story Cure community, is just to help people tell their stories and feel like their stories matter. I'm really a believer in that. And I hope that maybe sharing some of these stories, we can help heal some of these divisions in the world. That would be my greatest
That's
hope.
a beautiful
That's
hope.
it.
That is a big hope. That's a big thing. So I think it's absolutely aligned and beautiful. How about you, Jen?
I It's been interesting. I have a really hard time letting go of the people that I work with, even for a short period of time on these books. I'm used to working on film projects or something that go a lot longer, and I really develop these relationships. So I've been reaching out to some of the people I worked with over the last few years and being like, just reconnecting. What's going on? How's it going? Because it's an honor to get pulled that deeply into someone else's storytelling experience and to be part of it, right? And to watch the glow on their face. I'm going to cry because my friend Jason is about to launch his book, and I was the first person to read it besides him, his original draft of it. So he's so excited and to share it, and like I can't wait to see him holding that first copy up and to know that like I helped make that happen. That's the lasting impact for me. Like that's all I need is that, because it feels like true connection with
Mm-hmm.
someone else, right? And that's
Yeah.
that's what matters to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I see what y'all are going to do is put a big event together where all these authors come together to know each other in person. And then just the last one is
We are aspiring to host an event. We are aspiring
We
to
are.
host a retreat. So we are hoping to make that happen in the midst of all this chaos in the world. So because I totally agree, being able to get together in person. And I totally am so glad you brought that up, Candice, by the way. Yes, the idea of authors being human beings and getting out there and meeting people. Oh my God. Yes. That's it. That is the ticket for the future. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's like a big intuitive download that I've had lately about a lot of things, just creating more community. How can we do that? When is your next 8-week course going to start? That was my last one.
Yeah, so the Story Cure community is open. I know I see Jamie asking about it. Would love for you to join us. It's like free the first month and $10 a month after that or something. I mean, it's not a big financial investment. We would love to have you. We're looking for more voices. You can join that anytime on my networks. And then we are hoping to run another cohort this fall. So probably starting around September.
Okay.
Of the 8-week course for your best-selling book. Yeah.
Perfect. And whenever you guys are getting close, I'll make sure that it gets announced in my newsletter. And so that way people can have that reminder. So if you're watching, we'll remind you of the things. We're human. We forget everything. So, and we'll also make sure to link the Story Cure community and all of that. Like I said, it's, and I want to share, like you guys had launched this community and it used to be $50 a month, but your compassionate heart, you were like, nope, the world needs this more. And you were like $10 a month, because we all know we got to pay something or we forget. And so, I just want to shout that out because I think that's a huge integrity and alignment thing that you just felt. And you were like, nope, the world is hurting. I'm going to bring these people together. So, but anyways,
well, I will give Jen primary credit for that. Jen was like, we got to lower this has to be completely accessible. And frankly, if anybody can't afford $10 a month, please just let us know. Like you can be an evangelist and, promote it a bit on your own social media, and we'll let you be in there for free.
Yeah, you guys are great humans.
Oh,
thank you.
Yeah,
So
I'm starting my day feeling so good about myself. Thank you, Candice.
good. You're welcome. You should. You both should. Well, again, thank you both for just your time and your energy and everything you're doing in the book world. And I'll make sure everybody knows how to connect with you if they would like to. And yes, just thank you so much for your time. And thank you, everyone who's been here to watch. We truly appreciate it to get the message out there a little bit more. And that's it for today.
Thank you. And feel free to friend
Thanks so
us on,
much.
connect with us on LinkedIn. That's an easy place to start.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.